Hey everyone, I am your host, Beth Barany, for How to Write the Future podcast. This is a podcast where I talk about tips for writers, specifically science fiction and fantasy writers, and how you can create positive and optimistic futures for yourself, for your readers, and for the world. In this short episode today, I want to reflect on the fact that it's my 2-year anniversary of running this podcast. And I want to share a few things that I have learned and reflect on it together with you. It's a funny thing having a podcast. You record, you create, you interview, you release, you promote, and all in the privacy of my own home. It's quite amazing with today's technology. I just love that so much. So I'm so grateful to be able to use the tools that I have. Descript is what I record on. I'm using a Yeti mic. I actually bought this mic several years ago before I started the podcast. And I use Buzzsprout to distribute. Such great tools. And of course, I have a team. Couldn't do this without a team. Some of the factors that came into play for me to start this podcast were an inspiration from a friend of mine, Shannon Borg, who gave me the topic because she saw that's what I was thinking about, concerned about, writing the future, writing science fiction. I cared about foresight and futuristics. Doing this podcast, I thought that I would be developing a curriculum somehow because I'm a teacher and I always think of things in terms of curriculum. But what I have discovered is maybe not so much a curriculum, but a wealth of information sharing all the different things that interests me. And maybe there is still a curriculum in here. I can't quite see it, but I'm just following my nose and letting my intuition guide me and having fabulous conversations with people, a good handful of which are going to be coming out later this year. When I first started, I felt tentative. I felt like I really didn't know what I was doing. We all feel that way at the beginning of a project, and this one is no different. And what I've discovered is, for one thing, I have to do things to warm up my voice, meaning I actually have to have a conversation with another person, either real-time conversation or asynchronously. I have to talk to a friend who I have asynchronous conversations with through Voxer, another tool that I really love, but isn't directly part of this podcast. So she and I have conversations all the time and asynchronously, and we're having this ongoing conversation. It's fabulous. So I know that if I need to warm up my voice, and because I work from home, I don't have office mates, I can talk out loud. I can work out, because I like to talk it out, whatever's on my mind that I think might make a good topic. And then I can come back home and I can record it. So that's one thing I've learned. Another thing I've learned is just to really pay attention to the questions I'm being asked by my clients and students and use those as food, fodder for the episodes. So I've always been doing that in the written form, and now I've taken that into the podcast form. And something that I have been ruminating on lately is, how do I connect my How to Write the Future podcast and my interest in writing science fiction and fantasy with the greater methodology of my work as a writing teacher, which is really about coming from the heart. I've been developing over the last few months a methodology with the help of a class that I took called Surface Your Methodology. The teacher is Kelly Deals, and I really appreciate her work. I'm working with her in another program as well called We Are the Culture Makers. And this whole process of surfacing my methodology has been not so much like inventing anything. It was really documenting what it was that I have been doing all these years. 18 years as a writing teacher in my own business. And actually, I was teaching writing before that as well. So if I really count to when I started teaching writing in one form or another, we're talking 25 years, something like that. Or actually, maybe 35 years. I can't do math when I'm talking. 35 years. Yeah, that sounds about right. And so what does that mean? What I want to say is, how does it connect my Trust Your Heart methodology for writers to my How to Write the Future podcast? I'm still evolving my methodology, but it's called Trust Your Creative Heart Method. It's specifically how to go from idea to finished science fiction or fantasy novel. So how do I connect that with how to write the future, which feels like such a forward-oriented statement? And what I came up with is everything that I do is rooted in the heart. And I love that word rooted. It's rooted through the body and the heart. But I didn't call my method trust your heart and body. Your heart is in your body. I don't know. My method existed before I named the method. So I think my method of trust your creative heart, it's already been baked into the work I'm doing with the podcast. And I guess what I'm trying to do right now out loud with you is to put words to the feeling and connect them for myself. Ultimately, I believe in the power of our creativity and the power of our heart. And the heart meaning caring for others outside of just ourselves, and caring for ourselves, actually. Caring for ourselves, caring for others, caring for our beautiful planet. And when I am thinking about how to write the future, I'm really thinking about all of humanity and all of living life, all of life and our habitat, the earth. We're all connected here. And when we write stories about our possible futures, I want to encourage you to have it rooted in heart. In fact, I bet you it already is. What you care about is what you're writing about. Where is the heart in your work? Yeah. And one last thing I want to leave you with, which is when I say how to write the future, I realize I want to clarify that I'm not talking about the future with a capital T. Like there isn't one definitive future. There's actually many futures. Every one of us, each one of us here is going to have your own future, and we create our futures by what we do today. So really, I notice that I'm always concerned about as a writing teacher, as for myself and my own creative work, is what are the habits that we are operating off of today, and how can we develop better habits to achieve what it is that we want to achieve as writers. So it is both a today thing and it's a future thing. And then, of course, it's also a past thing because our today is built on what was in the past. And how we view the future, is it based on who we are today? And who we are today is based on who we were before. But what about changing that? So how do we change that? So I'm also very interested in how we change how we view ourselves now. And it happens because we change how we view the past. And we could also do that. We could change how we view the future. So change is another theme, obviously, that I care very much about, and I will continue to explore. But thank you for listening to my short podcast episode today about what I've learned. I don't really want to make any promises about what is going to continue to happen here on the podcast because I want it to be a surprise. I do have lots of ideas brewing, and I have a lot of interviews to share with you that I've done over the last 6 to 9 months that are still waiting for me to release. So when those are ready, I'll be sharing more about those. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Write long and prosper.